Alright, we are recording for chapter 24, which is technically the final chapter, but there's an epilogue that's like 2 pages long or something, so I'll try to get that right after this. It's getting late though, so hopefully I can be quick. So yeah, some things are still not being answered here, which does annoy me. So like the very first thing I have is Dooku did not know about the clone army. So seemingly it's just coincidence that he hired Jango Fett, the basis for the clone army, and who did know about the clone army. And this also then leaves the very, very important question of who was Sifo Dyas, however you pronounce it, the Jedi Master who supposedly placed the order for the clone army, and who is Tyrannus, who's the one who hired Jango to, well, supposedly be the one serving as the original. We got nothing. Yeah. Dooku does refer to, and I'll be honest, this I feel, I really, really don't like this. I really don't like this. Dooku refers to, like, I have to get back to Coruscant and my master. Then takes the Death Star plans. If he's referring to Sidious, which would make Dooku then the apprentice in this case, the amount of damage done to his character that we've already gotten set up is immense. Because how he was talked about early on was basically he was an idealist. That he felt that the Jedi Order should not be serving the politicians like that. I mean, that is the wrong position for them. And the whole, he learned that the Senate has been corrupted by the Sith Lords, and so he is doing this to try to combat that. He's also thirsty for his own power, as I talked about in the previous video, but it still is like, that's a much more interesting character. This is he is just the apprentice. What a waste. And I could believe that it could have even been a Salvatore's writing. It's like really making him interesting, And then it's like, oh, and he is actually the Sith apprentice. It's like, damn it. So now I gotta put that in there. Man, he would have been so much better if they didn't do that. If he was just a third party, that then Palpatine had to figure out, okay, how can I start manipulating him? Because he may have been figuring, okay, the separatist stuff, I can use this to my advantage, have this emergency going, but, it's like, so long as it never gets to war, I'm okay. I can continue controlling this. But then say, oh shit, they actually do have an army, and wait, we have one too? We're actually going to war. Oh shit, I don't know how to necessarily handle this. But it's Palpatine, and a good villain should also be a mastermind such that has simple plans. And when something unexpected happens, it's say, okay, I just adapt the plan to bring it back to where I want it to be. Which would be really neat. Like if he now has to manipulate as both Sidious and Palpatine to Supreme Chancellor Palpatine to not only control the Republic, but figure out how he can control the Separatists. Like, one idea I had that would have been interesting is what if Dooku was still this third party, but Grievous answered to Sidious? That would have been very interesting, especially because then that would give further reason for why Palpatine orders Anakin to kill Dooku at the start of Revenge of the Sith. That he knows that means Grievous is now in charge, and that's his boy. That would have been like really, really clever, and it would make some sense as well, because Grievous suddenly is brought in relative to how things are introduced. Like, Dooku was always in charge. Where did Grievous come from? We don't know. He's just suddenly there. And in theory, there is backstory there that I don't know. Sorry. But it's just the whole, that actually would have been very interesting, I think. And could have allowed that when now Palpatine is able to manipulate the Separatists while still being head of the Republic. And Dooku is just not realizing what's going on. And that he tried to be a third party, but ends up serving Sidious anyway. Just not knowingly. Would have been so much better. But technically would have taken away from him the ability to use the dark side of the Force. And it's like, okay, yeah, I get how you kind of want to do that, but it still is like, I'm sorry, I'm saying by it would have been so much more interesting if it was Dooku was too much the idealist, And so these manipulations could be happening around him and him just not seeing it. And that he is also thirsty for power. Like, he almost a kind of the you stare too long into the abyss, it stares back kind of thing. Where he's been so obsessed with the corruption of the Republic that he doesn't actually know what it is to not be corrupt. So he himself is still corrupt, but he sees it as better because it's him kind of thing. So you could have done that and make the character so much more interesting, make the story, how it plays out, so much more interesting, but no. Okay, so they do talk about then how he is gonna flee. And the Jedi are like, oh, we can't let him go because more systems will join his cause if he does. It's like, he's getting his ass handed to him. Like, I mean, he was building up quite an army, quite a military. And the Trade Federation is there, and these other guilds are there that, have these militaries. And the Republic, that no one even knew had this army, suddenly just appears and stomps them. I mean, it's like, he's consistently described as, yeah, they got nothing on these guys. Because it does mention that while one-on-one, a clone might be equal to a droid, whereas when the super battle droids would be able to defeat a single clone easily, in groups, the clones, they're creative, they're imaginative, so they can employ tactics that the droids are not capable of, so they're easily being defeated. But it still is, it's like, this is an overwhelming defeat of Dooku. What planet would join him now? Because, like, dude, they just showed off an army that if we oppose them, they're coming for us. Why would we do that? And you just lost. It really doesn't make any sense. It would only be those that are already members that you'd think would stay with him. But it would be well, we're committed to this, so I guess we have to do this, even though potentially a lot of their resources have just been annihilated. And you have no concept of what the Republic's resources are, because the military just appeared. So can they continue to build this? Can they continue to... Can it be maintained where it is, and can it be grown? They don't know. And it's also potentially now more Republic planets can openly start contributing to that. Yeah, I mean, it's like, you would really be like, shit, we are going to get our asses handed to us if we even talk to this man. He comes by, we arrest him, we hand him over, and we're like, we good now? Right? I mean, again, it feels like this is in there not because it makes actual sense, but because it's it's necessary. I'm just trying to think, how could you have him fleeing and have it still make sense? Yeah, it would have been better if it was not he'll rally more systems to his cause, but more of if he escapes, we won't be able to find him, and he will be able to prepare and strike again. So it's like, this isn't we'll still have a problem in a month. It may be in 2 or 3 years, he may be back in a way that we may not be ready for. Like, we got lucky with the clone army now. What happens in 2 or 3 years? That would have been better, where it's more that, and also he must answer for his crimes kind of thing. It's like, that would have been better. And it is also, I don't know how much the time skip is between this and Revenge of the Sith, but it still is the whole, it's... You could have played with that, and it seems like, nah, it's just, he's somehow going to sway people to his losing cause, his clearly losing cause. Alright, what do I have next? Oh yeah, just a continuity thing. So it had been mentioned before that Yoda would have to start probing the dark side of the Force in order to see the future, basically, to figure out what's going on. Okay, that's neat. I'm pretty sure I had described that it could take him weeks of seclusion to recover from that, because it is trying on a Jedi, because they must enter into it, but at the same time reject it, kind of thing. Okay, that's fine. Except he did that like a day ago, and is totally fine now. So apparently it's not that difficult. We did not get anything of Anakin rejecting, deciding to leave the Jedi Order. We didn't really get that, unless you want to count Obi-Wan telling him after Padme has fallen out, potentially dead, after Obi-Wan telling him, if you leave, you will be expelled. And it's like, I don't care. Well, I can't leave her. I can't leave her. It's like, that's the closest we get. That's not good enough. Not from me. I mean, it's like, I have legitimate reasons for why I think he needed to do that. That it would be helpful for his character development. Would give him far greater maturity. That he is saying, no, these are, my priorities are not here. They're somewhere else. But then the war bringing back. That would be so much more mature, be so much better for the character, and no. Okay, a lot of what I have left here has to do with the fighting with Dooku. So, Anakin, Obi-Wan fighting him, and then later Yoda. I really do like it, it's not just because I did fence in college. But I do like how it describes that Dooku's skill at fencing is why he's really able to handle Obi-Wan easily, even. Because, and the way it's put in here, it's not just say, ooh, yeah, fencing, cool. No, it's the way it is put in the book is because fencing is meant to be used against other swords. Whereas a style Obi-Wan knows is meant to go against blasters. Yeah, in other words, Obi-Wan does not have a means to actually fight another Jedi. Dooku does. Dooku might be weak against the blaster then, but that's not what Obi-Wan is using, so... But, having said that, he defeats Obi-Wan, who's been stabbed in right shoulder, left thigh, something like that. Stabbed like that, he's dropped his lightsaber, so he's on the ground, he's immobilized, all that. And Dooku's like, well, time to end this. And so he chops down. It's like, wait, what? Dude has been fencing this entire time. That's how he got his opponent on the ground, ready to be killed. Now I'm going to chop. Stab him. 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 Instead, downward chop. So now Anakin's able to go, whoop. Obviously, it's for the movie. That you do, because it's like it's written in. The narrator is telling us about the fencing difference here. And it's also, I don't even think in the movie it is clear. When I watch it again, we'll see. I don't think it's that clear in the movie that Dooku is fencing while Obi-Wan is not. It's basically slashing and swiping and such. So that would be one thing there, but it is Anakin needs to be able to jump in and do something, and it's like, well, then it has to be something that Anakin can block. If it's a fencing stab, Anakin, yes, he can block it. It's just, as it's coming in, he would have to go like that to parry it. Be doing it from the side instead of straight on, but it still is, he'd have to do that. Doable, but it's not as dramatic as that. And then, binding there. Anyway. This is going to be so much fun when I have to deal with writing out sword fights. Because I'm not going to be that good at it, I know. But it's still, I can recognize the flaws here. Because, it's going from stabbing to chopping. It's like, what are you doing? Especially at a time when you can use any tech you want, and you use the one easiest to block. And is least like your style. What? Okay, So one thing that was neat to see. So now Anakin is fighting Dooku. I don't remember if this is before or after Obi-Wan threw him his lightsaber. So now Anakin's using both lightsabers against Dooku, because it's... Even Obi-Wan is basically commenting that Dooku's fencing is so efficient because it's just always like that. Whereas Anakin and Obi-Wan's style has him moving around a lot, so that's less efficient. And it's going to tire Anakin out, and Dooku basically just needs to buy his time and is able to stay in control. So he threw him the second lightsaber to throw off Dooku more. Okay, so that makes sense. But Anakin does something else that also throws off Dooku, except it doesn't. I know, it doesn't make sense. But he actually uses the Force to put a wall behind Dooku so he can't continue retreating. And this is something, for fencing, distance is tremendously important. So if you were to throw off Dooku's distance, that would throw him off and create openings. And it's feel like there's something else, some other story where that is also mentioned, that when fencing, you are going to have a preferred distance. And this is going to vary from person to person, to be clear. You could be taught certain ways, but like at a certain distance, because at that you know that you will be able to thrust and correctly reach, lunge and correctly reach. It's like all that. Distance is so important there. So by putting that wall, that force wall up to stop Dooku from moving, from retreating as he intends to, that should create a huge opening, because he's going to be like, what? And he is, even like, it does stun him. Well, not exactly stun him, but it is like, what was that? And he has to process what's happened. But Anakin doesn't kill him then. Doesn't strike him. I mean, how does it even put it? I want to find this. It might not be the easiest. Actually, wait, no, it might be... Oh, no, it is. Okay. He tried to step out to the side, but stopped as if he had hit a wall, and his eyes widened a bit when he realized that this young Padawan, in the midst of that assault, had used the Force to block his exit. He's pausing. Okay, I'm saying this is not Anakin is in such a flurry of attacks here. Even a small pause would be enough to create an opening for him. You have unusual powers, young Padawan, he sincerely congratulated. Again, he is distracted. Dooku is distracted. His little grin returned, and gradually Dooku put himself back on even footing with Anakin, trading thrust for slash and forcing Anakin to dodge and parry as often as he tried to strike. It's like, dude, no. He is described as distracted here, and he has to adapt now. Anakin should still be pressing and should be winning here, such that, no, you're not getting even footing, Dooku. You've already been run through at this point. At least it is Anakin is using the Force, because this is another note that I have there, and I just want to see, yes, it is actually the next one. Where's his rage? The Anakin that slaughtered the Tuskens would have been fighting so wildly differently. And it's kind of mentioned here that it is a different battle, but it still is. With that, Anakin ripped out a boulder, slammed one guy with it, and then dropped it on a tent to kill everyone in there. And this was like a day or two ago. And now he is fighting Dooku, who is a more lethal threat. And he thinks that Padme just died, too, don't forget. Or at least she might be dead. There's reason for his anger. There's reason for his hatred. And we're not even having a discussion on whether or not he is tapping into that or not. It's not even mentioned. That's just gone. It's like the whole Tusken stuff never even happened. That's the level of attention that is being given. It didn't even happen. Anakin should be raging at him and using the Force to such level that is not a wall Dooku walked into. That is an Iron Maiden. Okay? He should become pressed by the Force so strongly that Dooku is struggling to move. And Anakin is like continuing to come at. You could even have it where Anakin is finding that as he's trying to slash down, his own Force powers are stopping him. Like he is so intent on his anger and trying to kill Dooku that he's accidentally protecting Dooku. Like he's surrounded Dooku in this Force bubble, and it's like bringing it down, and it bounces off or something, and he can't get in there because he's trying to squeeze the life out of it. That's what I want here, okay? That is what he should be doing, because that's the level of Force power that he has. Okay? I'm sorry, if he can throw around that boulder like that, he's got that too. If he can make solid walls, and he also did that against the Tuskens earlier too. He did that and then threw a guy back with it. It's like, if he can do that, he can do this. And he should be at that same level of anger. But it's also with this, even if he does believe Padme is dead, it's still, some time has passed, so he may have cooled down so he can focus. Okay? He should be able to focus this and just go at Dooku. Right? That's what I want to see. And it's not what we get. It's like, this is to what I feel Anakin should be doing, should be capable, because of what we had a few chapters ago. This is boring, even, compared to what should be. I mean, it's kind of like the whole thing with, whatever video it was where I talked about Force Awakens, with the whole catching the blaster bolt. It's like, when that happens, like, all right, this is cool. I want to see these. I want to see more force powers like this. I want to see in like what is force in the 21st century. And then we got nothing like that in Force Awakens. And I feel like that's happening here as well. It's very disappointing. All right. Okay. What did not disappoint though? Yoda's fight with Dooku is better in this than in the movie. Because Yoda is far more clearly described as just being like a level well beyond Dooku. I also find out you've interfered with our plans for the last time. It's like, what was the first time? Dooku's saying this to Yoda. It's like, what was the first time? Seriously, what has he done that? Anyway, and now it's basically Dooku's using the Force to try to kill Yoda, but Yoda is was ready, waving his own hand, force pushing the flying machinery harmlessly aside. Dooku clutches the ceiling, breaking free great blocks that tumble down to Yoda, but small hands waved in, the boulders drop to the sides, bounce across the floor. I mean, it's almost dismissive. That's how powerful Yoda's being described here. But then it is when Dooku uses the Force lightning, Yoda caught it in his own hand and turned it aside, but far from easily. It's like, okay, yeah, this makes sense, because it even actually said a little bit before this that no Jedi had ever seen this. So Yoda being able to react is actually impressive. But powerful you have become, Dooku, Yoda admitted, and the Count grinned. But Yoda promptly took that grin away by adding, "The dark side I sense in you." Why that would take his grin away, I'm actually unsure. I've become more powerful than any Jedi. Even you, my old master. It's like, he knows he's using the dark side. He kind of announced it with the lightning. So, why would it take away the grin? I mean, Yoda didn't say anything to disturb a thought. He should still be grinning, or his grin wouldn't be taken away. It would have just faded away, because it's like, it's no longer necessary. Okay. More lightning poured forth from Dooku's hand. But Yoda continued to catch it and turn it, and seemed to become even more settled in his defensive posture. I was like, Yoda's up here, Dooku's down here. Okay, that I like that. That's cool. Yoda reverently drew out his lightsaber, because we do get the whole. Well, yeah, Yoda even says, much to learn you still have. And then, it is obvious this contest will not be decided by our knowledge of the Force, but by our skills with a lightsaber. That was a poor line in the movie, too. It's a poor line here. Because it's also, I'm sorry, to me, I see it as Jedi, Sith, whatever. You're using both. The idea that you switch between them is really foolish. It's like, the Force is a part of you. Lightsaber is a tool, but the Force is a part of you. Like, Anakin putting up that wall could even have been a accident. Like, that's how it should be here. That you're just so tuned into this one action that all of your forces, all of your powers are to that end. But anyway, we get to the end. The whole reverently drew out his lightsaber, its green blade humming to life. It's like, I like this better than in the movie where he drops the cane, opens up his cloak, and just pulls it out with the lightsaber with this grimace, as opposed to reverently where it's like just calmly doing that. And it's like, because that should more so be it for Yoda, I feel, especially because it's such a big level, such a big difference between that. It's like calmly doing it and with reverence for it, instead of a battle's on. It's like, no. Okay, Dooku gave a crisp salute, ignited his own red blade, but then, formalities over, he leapt at Yoda a sudden and devastating thrust. But one that never got close to hitting. With hardly a movement, Yoda turned the blade aside. Dooku went into a wild flurry then, the likes of which he had not shown against Obi-Wan or Anakin, raining blows at the diminutive master. But Yoda didn't even seem to move. He didn't step back or to the side. Yet his subtle dodges and precision parries kept Dooku's blade slashing and stabbing harmlessly wide. It was described earlier that Dooku was barely moving under Obi-Wan's assault. I don't think... No, that wasn't the case with Anakin, but Anakin was like overwhelming force kind of thing. So this Yoda is not moving. I was like, before it was... He was barely moving. The Dooku was barely moving. And here, Yoda isn't moving. It's like worlds separating them. And I like that because in the movie, I don't remember exactly when. Maybe there is some of this, but I just have the image of it, the little elf green guy hopping around, doing all these twirls that you really can't follow what the hell's going on. We do get that, but it is after a bit. With a sudden burst of sheer power, Master Yoda flew forward, his blade working so mightily that its residual glow outshone even those of both of Anakin's lightsabers when he was at the peak of his dance. I mean, it's like... Yoda is a lot more impressive in this. Okay, yeah. Dooku held strong, though, his red blade parrying brilliantly, each block backed by the power of the Force, or else Yoda's strikes would have driven right through. I was like, dude, Yoda's like a puppet. Well, I mean, he is, but I mean, just a tiny... And it's like, Dooku's a full-grown man. It's like, I'm having to use a freaking Force to keep this guy from killing me. Like, what the hell, man? I was like, I like this. This is so much better. So much more intense because we are getting the explicit description, whereas in the movie, it's either going to be implied, which means you might miss it, or it's not going to be there. But it's also, I want to point out that the whole, and I can actually end on this, I think. This helps explain why Dooku has to crush the crane to have it fall on Obi-Wan and Anakin, which it is described. They both try to stop it, but they're both so weakened in their states that they can't, which I don't really like. I can get to that in a moment. So Yoda has to. So it's like, Dooku has to cheat, essentially, because if he didn't, Yoda was going to beat him. He is defeated here, and he has to do something to escape. Now, two things. One, Yoda technically maybe should have been like, okay, I will kill you, I'll deal with burying them later. I mean, yeah, I get the whole, he's a Jedi, he should try to save their lives, but it's also the whole, it is war. But anyway, I also, with Obi-Wan and Anakin, I don't necessarily like that they're too weak, because to me, using the Force shouldn't be a physical action. Like, I don't like, it makes sense in the movies, but I don't like the whole, that they always have to, go like that, or that hand wave, or whatever. It's like, or, reach out and do. It should be so a part of them, in my opinion, that it isn't necessary for those physical movements, and so it shouldn't also be dependent on your physical strength. So the fact that Anakin has lost an arm should be meaningless. He's in pain, so that can hurt his focus, but still is, I'm about to die, I'm going to move that. And then with Obi-Wan as well, yes, he has been stabbed in the shoulder and in the leg, but he's had some time to recover mentally, emotionally from that. And again, it's like, why can't he do that? And there's also, with my superhero fantasy stories, I do some of this. It's like, no, some of their abilities are mental enough that it, in fact, there is a part of, in one chapter, a discussion between some of them where it's like, yeah, well, your abilities are so mental, you don't even, like, your will is exhausted. But what does that even mean? There is kind of a discussion there that, when it's your physical body exhausting, when you're pushing yourself. But when it's just mental will, it's harder to tell. With this, though, we've only had their physical will described, their physical capabilities described as being slowed, because Obi-Wan and Anakin were barely using the Force. So why are they suddenly unable to use it here? But there's also something that I have in there, in both in Failure and The Children of Many Gifts, is the idea that when your life is in danger, your abilities, for my people, they turn on, and at greater force than they actually normally can imply. Because it's basically fight or flight reaction, and it is fight in this case. Why wouldn't that be the same for them? And I get the whole, well, that's your story, not this. I get that, but it still is. There's a natural response when in danger to react, and to do so beyond your normal limits. Like, we've got adrenaline and such. Apparently that doesn't exist here. It annoys me. I mean, it would be different if, because Anakin startled awake, it would be different if it were like they were both unconscious. But it's still the whole, dude could be a torso. I mean, technically, when Anakin is Vader, fully Vader, after the end of Revenge of the Sith, is a torso. And he's still able to use the Force, but he still needs to do the hand gesture. I mean, it's... should be all you need, is just the will for it. And it would also make, as I was saying earlier, it would also make things more interesting because of the whole, you have the will to attack, and so the Force just implicitly does it for you. It is all one action instead of, I'm going to do this and this and this to alter. No, it's all together. Alright, that should be enough. Let's get to the epilogue. See you next time.